job, Lynn. First on the list is Catherine.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and I appreciate LaShawn. Thank you so much for having me, Diana and Kirsten. I'm here to talk a little bit about tourism for the Danville, Pittsylvania County area. So lots to talk about and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today. So thank you.
All right, next we have Miss Landon Moss.
Yeah, so Landon's my partner. He's going through the opening routines. We're open on Mondays. This is Susan. We're from Moss Mountain Outfitters. We're at 326 Main Street. So just joining virtually because we're open today. So thanks for having us.
Alyssa, you sign on the phone? Oh, well, that's Zoom for you. Next we have Savon Rich. Am I saying it correctly?
Hey, y'all, it's Sabina.
Sabina, okay.
It's all right. I'm Sabina French. I am a visual artist and also developing some properties there in Danville. I still live in North Carolina, but I'm a huge fan of Danville and working on moving there if I could just find a place to live. So I'm happy to be a part of this.
Oh, thank you, Melissa Berkeley. Melissa. Okay, we'll come back. Suzanne McCullough.
Good morning. I'm Susan McCulloch with the City of Danville's Housing and Development Division. Just hoping to learn today. Good morning.
And Ken Gillen.
Ken Gilly, Director of Community Development for the City of Danville. We're just listening in to see if there's any way we can help, if there's anything that's needed from the city end.
Thank you. All right, we'll just start with Ms. Lauren.
Lori Lagarde, WAKG and WBTM radio station. And I've always been interested in history and thought we'd come in today and see if there's something we can learn.
Okay.
Cool. I'm Bryant Cook, Rooms Operations Manager at the B, just up the street. So we decided to sit in this morning, learn a few things, see if we have anything to offer. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm Maddie, General Manager at the B. I'm Erin, and I'm an internship for the B.
Sarah Latham, President of the Danville Historical Society, and Robin and Cody will be giving any updates.
Lonnie Jones, fairly new there, is just getting involved.
Okay. Melissa Turner, Office Manager for the River District Association.
I'm Crosby. I'm with the Denver Nonprofit Network, and I think Ellie can probably give our updates.
I'm Carice Leckbrumer, and I'm in the Community Initiatives Office in at Virginia Humanities. I am also with Plan Danville.
I'm Grace Mammon. I am the Danville reporter for Cardinal News, which is an online publication that covers Southwest and Southside Virginia.
I'm Sandra Stone, Sales Manager at WAKG, WBTM Radio, that's Piedmont Broadcasting. And we have a lot more than radio these days. And one of them we are starting outside of our station is podcasting. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to talk to you about it.
Hi, I'm Robin Mercado. I'm the Executive Director of Danville Historical Society.
I'm Cody Foster. I'm one of two archivists for the Danville Historical Society.
Scott Nolan, true as well, with 54 Crackhead, and I am in sixth year of imagery restoring.
I'm Ingram, I'm Associate Director of Preservation and Field Services, Preservation Virginia. For the water, I'm the Commissioner Coordinator, the day of the month.
Okay, did you want to talk about your updates, Kevin? Okay, good. So again, I don't know if anyone heard me. If you have any updates, you can tell them at this time. So do we have anybody that missed that part of the conversation and want to talk about any updates? Don't want to miss out. Okay, if not, we'll get the ball rolling. Right now we have Catherine Fox. She's virtually and she would talk about tourism.
So good morning, everyone. And I feel like I'm speaking to the experts. So bear with me as I learn from you and as we start to kick off workshops and customer service excellence workshops starting this week. We will be starting actually on Wednesday. So that's primarily what I'm here to talk to you about. You may see that I have a little bit of the new brand, which is the Visit SoSi new brand that was established and announced on May 11th during National Travel and Tourism Week. It's a new refreshed brand as Danville has gone through sort of a new revibrance, and an interesting article that the Danville Register and Bee had over the weekend. If you saw that on most of you probably did yesterday, which really ties the downtown district into a lot of great growth and change. And I know, Madison, you were quoted in there, and the Bee is seeing some results of that, and the revenues too for the city. So excited about tourism. Just backtracking a little bit, I am here on behalf of Lisa Merriweather with the city of Danville, who has really started to build on the groundwork for tourism in the region. I appreciate her efforts, and Corey and all of the economic development folks, as it brings in revenues to the region. The meals tax, I know, is up. The lodging tax is starting to show some great revenue as well. Our role working with Eddie Alexander is to have gone through the process of the branding. Many of you I have met through that, so I appreciate all the opportunity to meet you and continue to meet folks as we learn more about the growth and what's happening within the Danville area. So lots of great opportunities. Maybe you saw the Raleigh News and Observer as well, an opportunity to get more information out about the region and just getting new people to the area, and again, those revenues and getting them into your businesses. So what we're trying to do is to work collaboratively with you and folks who are working with you. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Madison, you just said that you tried to have an interview, or somebody was having an interview and people didn't show up. It's really a tough time. I realize that, and I just I don't know how to fix it, but what we can do is try to help with the people who are in existing in your businesses now. If they would like to attend these free, again, opportunity to do customer service excellence through hospitality and tourism training. We're very excited that the Museum of Fine Arts, History and Fine Arts are going to be hosting us on Wednesday. We'll have 2 workshops. They'll be identical to each other. They will be on Wednesday. The first one will start from 8:30 to noon. And again, the idea there is to say how tourism is making a difference in providing revenues and economic impact for the region, but also it's important to talk about the soft skills. So seem to be an opportunity to just remind people of just welcoming people, giving them those customer service skills that maybe we've all a little bit need a refresher on. So we're going to go through that. We're going to talk about state tourism, and we're going to talk about regional tourism. We're going to talk about local tourism, but that's really how we're going to do. We want to cross promote. If anything, the article over the weekend really stated that if people are staying at the Bee, they are walking around downtown, they are impacting the downtown area, and the restaurants and the shops are seeing that. The Danville Museum too, so the Science Museum, all are being sort of impacted along the way. So what we're trying to do again is get ready for maybe increased visitation. Summer is about to kick off, and that's another time to try to refresh that. So again, these classes are free. They are going to be starting Wednesday. The second session will be from 1:30 to 5. They're about 3.5 hours. We're also going to really highlight the AVRIT program. We met with the gentleman who is leading it. Thomas is leading this effort, and so I had an opportunity to talk with him. So we're going to talk more about the AVRIT program that's doing the hospitality tourism management and how that's building out. And our idea is 3.5 hours is a short amount of time to share with people all the things that there are to see and do in this region. And the idea is to keep them in the region. So we want to make sure that we're selling, cross-promoting the region, keeping them here and making the most impact here for this region. So what we're trying to do is, trying to build that up a little bit more. And AVRIT, I think, is a large part of that. So we're just going to build into his programming. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the Virginia Tourism Corporation and all that they're doing. If you aren't able to make this next workshop, which is Wednesday, it's coming up very quickly. We are hosting the next one on June the 13th at the Danville Science Center. So that will be June the 13th. It'll be the same set of workshops or sessions. Have a hard time trying to figure out how not to use the word training and workshops because we want to make it so that it invites people and they feel like it's going to be a fun environment. That's our hope. So it'll be June the 13th. We're going to have, again, the same sessions, 8:30 to noon and then 1:30 to 5. The next set of sessions will be in July. We're working with the town of Chatham to move them around and incorporate Pittsylvania County as well. So those are some of the things that we're just building out. Now we are offering incentives. I think it was Susan at the Mountain Outfitters that provided us with a gift certificate. The collective did as well. The Danville Science Center is providing us with some comp tickets. We reached out to the Otterbots and then Madison. Really appreciate you doing an overnight for two separate overnights. So it's an incentive for people to come to learn more about the region and also to cross promote the region. That is our objective. That is our hope. Again, I'm learning more and more. I had family in Danville years ago. Danville has changed. It's gone through quite a bit of a transformation. I am originally from Roanoke, and I was in the hospitality and tourism industry at a destination marketing organization for 33 years. And I trained and did hospitality training for about 20 years in conjunction with the Virginia Tourism Corporation, and just recently retook my training with the Disney Service Excellence. So I took an online course with Disney on their customer service excellence. So combining all the things that we've learned and all the things that we can put into place, we want to make it fun. We want to make it pretty exciting. We've got trivia. We're going to do groups where they learn how to cross promote the region. So we're going to really kick this off and excited about maybe learning a little bit today about history and being able to incorporate that into our presentation as well. And I am very much saying that this is a work in progress. But again, it's about giving those soft skills back to our teams and really welcoming individuals to the region. So thank you so much for your time today, for the opportunity to be here. LaShawn, thank you. Again, Kirsten and Diana for the opportunity. You guys have so much momentum that you're building. You must be excited. I'm excited for you and happy to be a part of it. And any questions you might have, happy to answer those. If you have any questions, LaShawn, you or Kirsten have my email address. So if anybody wants to email me or if anybody's interested in coming to the workshop on Wednesday, please don't hesitate to let us know. Again, a big thanks to the Office of Economic Development for their commitment to offer these workshops sessions to folks and the opportunity to welcome folks coming into the region. So again, thank you all very much. And thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
Awesome. Do we have any questions? Anybody have any questions? Well, I love the artwork in the background.
Oh, actually, it was I was gonna put this up, but I didn't have a chance to put this up. So I hope that the brand is something you're starting to really embrace and enjoy. We are really enjoying it as it refreshes and welcomes folks into the region. So thank you all. I will also be addressing that and giving people the tools to get the word out about the new brand.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, we will have Robin Mercado to come up and talk about the Executive Director for Danville Historic Society. Hey, Cody. And Cody. Okay, I thought Cody was gonna do this all day, but
No, we're a team. We're a team. Our third team member is unfortunately had something else to do today. So and that is Thomas Scott, otherwise known as Joe, and he's the other archivist. And both he and Cody are amazing. If you haven't met them. So we already said who we are. So for those of you who don't know, DHS, Danville Historical Society, is turned 52 years old this year. Hang on.
Intro music.
Spam. And we turned 52 years old this year. But for a good 50 of those years, we never had a home. And we never had like office hours. There's been like brief moments in time when we've had, you know, under a church basement kind of thing. We've had an open door or something. We've never really had an inventory, although we've had some extraordinary people in the past who really tried to do it. Sarah. And so until pretty much a couple of years ago, we had an enormous collection, not much knowledge of what was in it, and an extraordinary amount of that really encapsulates the last 400, 500 years, and in some cases 1,000 years because of the Native American artifacts. So anyway, within the past 2 years, which is really what I'm going to focus on, is when the three of us came in, and it was kind of a party because there were a lot of boxes with mysterious things in them, and it was a lot of fun. We went to work working with the Community Foundation to get computers. We got new inventory systems. So we now have a museum level professional system that's in the cloud. We are at the beginning, when we first started, we thought we might have somewhere in the range of around 100,000 items.
Yeah, we're pushing close to 500,000 individual.
Yeah, because we have, as it turns out, we have tens of thousands of photos and negatives. And we have an enormous amount of documents. If you go to Pennsylvania Historical Society, one of our partners, they have a lot of machines. So they have a lot of big stuff. We don't. We have almost exclusively paper and photographs. We have a lot of items, but that is the bulk of our collection. And part of it is like, we got the entire Stratford collection. After Stratford College closed, that entire collection has come to us. So that's their entire history, all the way back to the Randolph-Macon and prior, and to the Danville Female Academy, so into the 1800s. We have the entire John Tate collection, which is, he was the photographer for the Bee, or the Register.
He was a newspaper photographer. He was also a crime scene photographer, and pretty much anything that needed to be covered within Danville.
And he did that for 40.
Interrupt, but could you come this way, so you're not in this now? There we go. There we go.
Okay. Hello. So we have, so if you didn't hear Cody, John Tate was both the photographer for the paper, and he was also the local crime scene photographer. So we have all his crime scene photos as well, and this period about 40 years. We also have the Chamber of Commerce collection, which is photography that spans about 30, 40 years, something like that. We have the entire Sutherland collection, which is the museum up on Main. We have all the business papers of the man who owned that, including all the paperwork prior to building it, including an inventory for what he was going to need to build that house. So we have all his business papers up until he died. I could probably stand here for the next hour and just list them off, but I won't do that because I want to focus on two things. We have been spending the last year cataloging, digitizing inventory, and then so that's what we do mostly during the day, but we also answer questions from the public. And one of the things that I wanted to point out today is that while we do get a lot of locals, we get a lot of people who drive in just to see us. We've had people fly in from Washington State, from New York State, from Pennsylvania. We've had people come in from Arizona and California just to come see us, and then they get a hotel and then they go eat and whatever. But they're here to do family history or history on a particular subject that they're researching. And that is sort of what I want to focus on, because I think in Danville, we're very focused on new, but I want to give a shout out now to the old. The idea of monetizing history sounds a little crass, but it's actually a very wonderful thing. The Millionaires Row that exists today is because of DHF David about 50 years ago, a woman named Mary Cahill. That is now a tourist destination, and people come into town to see it, and when they do, they spend money. So that is what's referred to as the monetization of history. And just to give you a couple of numbers in terms of that kind of what history tourism is, because I think it sometimes gets lost into what people will go see, but history tourism is $1 billion industry, actually 17 billion. And if museums and historical spots were represented as a US city, the industry would rank the 59th largest in terms of GDP. It is massive. People plan their trips around this kind of stuff. And in 2016, and this is pre-COVID, of course, and we know since COVID, these numbers have gone up, the total impact of economic activity supported by this sector generated $8 billion in federal tax revenue and an additional $4 billion in state and local tax revenue. We have the bonus also of being in Virginia, which has a plethora of wonderful history museums, so people can do it on a tour. So that said, as we have focused on that and building up our group and bringing in new board members and having people like Sarah, who's wonderful, who rewrote the bylaws and got us organized, and as we reach out for more grants. The other thing that we have been doing is trying to work with other groups in the region to make sure that we are a tourist destination for everybody. So if somebody comes in, we don't want them to just come see us. We want them to make a plan to see us and then stay and then to take a Reese tour and then go to Pennsylvania Historic Society and go to Piedmont Genealogy and hit all of these places. So they have to stay and they have to get more than one meal. And so one of the ways that we are doing that is we approached the National Tobacco and Textile Museum. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Sarah does. Okay, a handful of people. It was last open over 30 years ago. It closed in 1991. It was open from 1975 to 91. And if you don't know that this was the center of tobacco for many, many, many years. And so when it came time to build a tobacco museum, the head of American Tobacco wanted to build it here. His name is George Myers. And he was an extraordinary man. He went to all the different tobacco companies, many of which were in Danville. They made an amazing collection of the history of tobacco and textile, and then they set it up. And then Mr. Myers, unfortunately, 6 months after they opened, passed away. And it never really got its footing. It was an amazing tourist attraction, but it never grew like it probably should have. And so after about 30 years, they just packed it up because the building was falling apart and they didn't know what to do. So for 30 years, it's been in storage, about 6 different places. So over the past year, we've been working with them to get it out, and we have succeeded. And so the majority of the textile material went to a college, I think, in North Carolina.
2 different locations, so to a college and then the tobacco or textile museum down towards Grand, North Carolina.
Okay. There's a little left,
yeah.
But so there's still about 40,000 pieces left of tobacco. So we've been going in small sections to go over there and pick up material and bring it back. Because it's been in a space that is unair conditioned and unheated and a little open to the seasonal changes, there are some damage, but overall it's an extraordinary multi-million-dollar collection. We wanted to share some of that with you today because what Cody's holding in his hand looks really small and unimportant, but this actually will get someone to drive 3 states away to come see this. And I'll let you take over.
So.
Go.
Well, so these are, and I'll hand these down if you want to peruse through.
Here, Matt borrow? Yes. No, I'm gonna say half.
So these are some of our T206 baseball cards, which are known as tobacco cards. So these would have been available anywhere from 1906 to 1908, only in cigarette packs of the time. The ones that are going around are some of the, I guess, less valuable ones that we have within the collection. We still have to have these graded, but some of these cards are tens of 15s of thousands. We had a list of there being originally around 1,600 of these cards. We're now left with around 500 to 600 of them. through years of disintegration and, not being conserved. But these are
And
just,
just vanishing.
yes. So these are just a small minuscule part of the collection. Again, that is 2 or 3% of the bigger picture. So the deal with these is we've had collectors across the country contact us since they found out that we kind of discovered these, including the National Tobacco or National Baseball has been in contact with one of our experts that's been sorting them. And they've showed a great interest and actually have told our expert that it's one of the largest, if not the largest, single conglomeration of these cards in the US. They don't exist really anymore. You can find them on eBay. Most of the time they're reprints or the grading is so low that 90% of the cards in our collection are pristine and, basically were saved from the time they were new until we rediscovered them.
And if you, do we have any baseball fans, hardcore baseball fans? Slightly core baseball, yeah, nothing. Ty Cobb?
Have you found a Honus Wagner?
Yeah, that was my question.
There were.
We had at 1.3. Really, one of them which was signed. Those are no longer in the collection. We have no clue where they went within.
It's been 30 years in random storage spaces. It's not that the owners didn't love them. It's just that they've been in storage and
We're still sorting through it.
Yeah.
So as we've come across things, we found different binders of cards. So we're not 100% sure that they're gone. So we're still sorting through another 35 or 40,000 items. So it's still yet to be determined.
yeah, and Honus Wagner, if for those who don't know, Honus Wagner was a baseball player, and these cards, I apologize, went up to about 1912, 1913. They are referred to as the monster collection cards. This collection, like in terms of if you're a collector, this is the peak. So it's not just Honus Wagner, it's the fact that he's one of the T206. He was a player that did not like to have his image on baseball cards or anything. And so because of it, there were very few made. And so I think there's less than 100 today, but there wouldn't have been that many at that time either. That means that even he was a great player, he wasn't Ty Cobb, but he's rare. We have some cards that are we have a player that had played less than, I want to say a year, less than 1,000 cards were made of him.
So
But-
we have 3 of those 1,000 cards that were made in 1906.
Yeah, and because that's so rare, the last one that was at market went for 10,000.
Yeah, and that was graded as the PSA 2.
And people go, no, this is exactly what people will drive and visit for. And so we want to show these because the baseball stuff is kind of cool. We also, the collection again is 35 to 40,000 items, and then we have over, anywhere between 200 and 500,000. And as we put this together, the opportunity to really bring people into Danville, aside from the casino, is enormous. And it's also, as we have discussed with some of the state folks, it's a reason to leave the casino. Once the casino is up and built, it's a little city, and they really want you to stay inside that city. This will get them out of the city, because that's not going to be at the casino. This is what they will see at DHS is it's one of a kind. So, anyway, we want to emphasize that the material that we have is one of a kind. We do have another piece that we will share at the end. We have the 1963 photos from the civil rights protests. These are also one of a kind. You might see them floating around on the internet somewhere here and there, but the majority of them are in this book. What's not really known is that what we have are the police evidence photos. So while these look like someone documenting what was going on in 1963, sorry, Zoom folks, what you have is this is the police taking these photos. And this on the back, as you can see, the writing, that's the city attorney writing what he's going to charge these people. So it's an incredible piece of history. I love this picture too. I don't know if everyone can see this. This picture here, I don't know if Zoom can see it, hello Zoom. This is a bunch of happy kids. It was when they took over the city clerk's office. And this person taking the picture of them is a cop in 1963, and these kids are not afraid. They are happy, they're smiling, they are full of hope. They're there because they know it's the right thing to do. And it tells a very different story than the one that we often hear. And I think that's a story that we can connect to today, to any protest that you see today, which is that kids usually come into it and they're the hope and the spirit behind it. And they will show up and they will change the future. So, and the majority of these kids that were in NC 63, they're here today. So, anyway, so we have a lot of amazing stuff like that. And then, did you have the, in this piece? Does everybody know about the wreck of the old 97? Want to hold a piece of the old 97? Yes.
So what is being passed
Oh, no,
around
it's
now?
okay. It's not,
That's your ring.
yeah. Sorry.
It physically cannot be hurt unless you really drop it and pound it.
Okay.
So this is a piece of the gas lamp from the conductor's car of the old 97. It was picked up the day after the wreck by J.W. Yarborough and was eventually gifted to Edwin Booth, Danville, Virginia. And that was eventually donated through the Booth collection to us.
So you can pass it around. And you can see where one of the pieces, you can see where it worked when it crashed.
Where
So,
was the tobacco museum?
hmm?
Where was the tobacco museum?
It was located on Lynn Street, I think approximately now where the Little Theater is. In
I think
that
so.
area.
Yeah, it was one of those big tobacco buildings. But, I think it's not even a fitness place in it now. I think there's a fitness place downstairs. So, but so this is an abbreviated version of what we normally talk about. We also do people's genealogy. We also track down lost parents on occasion. We've done that more than once.
We're the definitely the group, if you want to know something extremely obscure about Danville, come and ask us because we'll dig it out.
Does everybody know there were POW camps in Danville?
Yep.
Well, did you know?
I did not.
Okay, there you go. So, I mean, it really has an amazing history and, good and bad and just fascinating. And we really encourage, with the other thing that we do that I want to mention is that a lot of times people come to us and say, I'm thinking of buying a building in Danville. Can you tell me about the building? And then we go in and dig up everything we can find and pictures from 1901 and things like that, and who owned it and who died there and who lived there. And
Besides just the paper, collection within, the archives, I think that, photographic history within our collection probably is bar none comparative to, anything within the region. We cover everything, even down into North Carolina, into Yanceyville. Great example, we randomly found pictures of the Milton Colonial hen burning in 53 when Dan River Teamsters took over and burnt it down to run the, crossers off. And so random things like that, you would never think that were saved or preserved, but somehow it's there.
yeah, and preserving these things brings you more money as opposed to not preserving them and trying something new. There always will be money coming in for people who love history. It's a steady, and I'm emphasizing it just so people understand because we see it every day. And I think sometimes we don't recognize the value both to our lives and how much it, makes it better, but also because it really does bring people in. And so we're very focused on getting as many people in as possible, and especially to the River District. So if you'd like to come visit us, we're at 406 Cattle. We're generally open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 10 to 3. But if you just call us, we'll probably open up for you.
What was that address again?
406 Cattle. So we're right between Monument and Lynn, and the Dula warehouse is right behind Grizzly Hatchet Throwing.
And right now we are the only ones there. So we're hard to miss. But we are getting 2 new neighbors. One's a sign company and digital. Kagaris, and we are getting apparently an antique car display / museum. So anyway. So that's it. I'm sorry if we took time.
Thank you, Robin and Cody. Any other questions? Any final thoughts?
I do have a question. Can you talk a little bit about how the idea that like history is a narrative that can be shaped and a little bit about DHS's recent efforts to include a wider, more inclusive version of history of Danville?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be any secret that as the last capital of the Confederacy, we've not been overly welcoming for the telling the stories of the Black Americans that live here. And Reese's gonna cover most of that. I think when we came in and we started to see some of the extraordinary material we had, but we also saw what was lacking.
Exactly.
And we saw that there was a percentage of Danville's history that just wasn't covered.
Well, and also the time frame in our own history to kind of re-reveal some of the past indiscretions that maybe have been brushed over, over the past 40 or 50 years to kind of bring them back to light. Not so much to, sell a narrative of anything new, but really just kind of truly tell history as it unfolded. Because what you'll get from us is really a non-biased history of anything you ask us. We don't cut any punches. We tell you how it came, how it happened, and pretty much, how it folded out.
Well, and the thing that we tell everyone who comes through the door, especially kids, there are so many kids that come in and they know about Bloody Monday, but they don't know what happened the rest of the year. They know about the Civil War. They don't know any of the details. They know some basics here and there, but they don't know, 95% of the cool things that happen here or why they're important. And the fact is that history, more than any other subject in school, is key to critical thinking. And if you find a love of history, what you start to do is appreciate it. And you will appreciate what you love. And so if you own a home that's 100 years old and it's an old bucket house like nothing, and then you find out all these cool stories that happened there and what was going on and everything, suddenly that house now has a different meaning. Maybe you want to not just preserve that story, you want to take care of the house so that generations later, they can tell that story because now your story is a part of it. We have challenged kids to look up the street name where they live because everything means something around here. And once you get to that point and you're starting to question, like, why was this named here? Why do I live here? All that kind of stuff. I'm not a very good speech maker. You can take on bigger challenges. We have had a lot of challenges the last few years. Should we move the Harry Wooding statue? That has to be a conversation that's based in knowing a lot about Harry Wooding and knowing a lot about Danville. And so you can't have it if you have this much information on each side. I encourage conversations like that because it's so great to hear where people come down and why and how they interpret a particular piece of history. And I really encourage it, but it really, to get kids to know more about the city, if the kids here, I feel, if they knew more about Danville, if they understood what an incredible space this is, what incredible things have happened here, I think they wouldn't be so anxious to leave. I think they'd want to stay and be a part of it. And I think that's a big problem right now is we have a huge loss of the young kids leaving. And maybe they do, but maybe something calls them back and they want to come back and take care of it and be a part of this community. And I think embracing history and understanding it and discussing it is a big part of that. So.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Robin. Next, we have Carice Brimmer with Irish Humanities from Plan Game.
Hello, everybody. I'm not gonna hold you long since we're almost at time. I just wrote down a few things that I wanted to share with you this morning in regards to African American historic preservation. And let me tell you start by telling you a little bit about the work that I do. But I work as a public historian and a genealogist at Virginia Humanities, which is our state's humanities council. And basically our mission is to tell the stories of all Virginians. So we have different ways of doing that through our With Good Reason, that's our NPR affiliate, Encyclopedia Virginia, and different avenues of just telling the story, a more inclusive story. So I'm also on the Board of Historic Resources. And the Board of Historic Resources is a policy-making board, and we help to inform highway markers and things like that. And also, we also recommend historic sites to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. One of the things about, I've always felt like African-American historic preservation is one of the key ways that we tell a more inclusive narrative. It is by telling our own stories through our own sites. It's important, as Black historic spaces are some of the first to get rejected or discarded. Black cultural assets are underfunded and undervalued, with only 1% of African Americans working as preservationists. And I just want to let you know that I'm a part of that 1%. In doing this work, I have learned that people protect what they respect. If we do not have recognition of our cultural heritage, crucial historic sites related to African American history will disappear. And with that, we also risk losing hundreds of years of history that informed how African Americans have shaped this country. And we have to do this by lending resources to the communities to help preserve their own history. I do believe that we should be the ones telling our own stories. Right now there's a mandated law among the universities that the universities have to research and study their sites as descendants-like sites for the formerly enslaved, for those that helped build those universities, to receive reparations for those. So I don't forget anything. I had just participated in wrote an article about this exactly what they invited me to talk about. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it. I may repeat some stuff, but this is how my work helps to inform historic preservation of what we're doing. Genealogists often get thrown into the world of historic preservation, tourism, and economic development. The way that I help support Black and Brown communities is by providing education and resources around the issues that have historically plagued our communities. Historically Black neighborhoods are often looked at as the slum and less desirable. But once we begin to educate economic development on the history, the cause, the effect, and the whys, it all becomes evident that these communities look that way because they have been neglected all by design. Oftentimes, these communities are not privy to the information and resources that are available with helping to restore and preserve their own communities. Black communities and anything associated with Black culture is left out and completely ignored by the preservation movement. Spaces that are historical treasures in the Black communities are last to get resources, and the decision makers who decide if it stays or goes usually have no connection to the communities. Genealogy is tracing your ancestors through every historical moment known to man. So it's not just who you are related to, but it's about the way your ancestors lived, worked, and worshiped, and how through their resilience and tenacity you are here today. The research reveals clues and facts about the successes and failures, and you are able to connect them to key points in history. You learn of their occupations and who the carpenters and architects were. All of this is essential for historic preservation. There are still some people living in the homes designed by Black architects in the mid to late 1800s in Black communities that are worth preserving. Genealogy provides the tools needed to qualify these spaces for the National Register of Historic Places. These spaces then provide opportunities for tourism, and we know that historic preservation goes hand in hand with economic development. I am grateful for the relationship between our state organizations like Virginia Humanities, the Department of Historic Resources, and Preservation Virginia with Sonia Ingram, because we're all working together in tandem to help preserve these historic places that are essential for framing a more inclusive story for our country. And I feel that when people know their familial and cultural roots, it helps to develop a sense of pride, connection, and their core identity. And so before I leave, I'll leave you with a couple of stories. One story, I'm not going to tell you this story because if you've watched 60 Minutes, you've heard it. The Sharswood story is a good example of descendants that are reclaiming their history and helping preserve the places where their ancestors were enslaved. In September, the Board of Historic Resources will convene here in Danville. They will be staying at the Bee, and they are excited to come here to see the places like the Bee that they have helped with historic tax credits to bring a lot of these projects to fruition. But I want to tell you the story when we talk about Black architects and places and the things that our city has been doing. If you look at it, Danville and all of our revitalization efforts have come from historic preservation, you know, and by saving these places, you know, a couple of years ago, we had people like that worked together to help preserve the Williams House on Hallbrook Street, which is the only African-American historic district in the city of Danville. As a matter of fact, less than 2% of places that represent African-American history are labeled as historic sites. In the city of Danville, we have 32 historic markers, only 8% represent African-American history and culture. So we have work to do in that regard. But with the Williams House, you know, preservationists, the people that were at DHS at the time and local people in city economic development, they came together to help preserve the Williams House and received a $400,000 grant from the National Park Service. And the Williams House, one thing I would like to say about that is that it was built in 1906 by Robert Allen, who was an architect, a Black architect. He built this home for his family. He also built a lot of the homes that you see on Hallbrook Street and buildings that you see down on North Union Street. All of those were built by Robert Allen. Robert Allen even built some of the smokestacks that you see on the top of Dan River. He actually died as a result of an injury falling off of one of the smokestacks. So I also give cultural heritage tours in the city. And that's because I want people to have a greater appreciation and acknowledgement for African-American life and for what they contributed to building our great city. So when I get to the Williams House, I always tell a genealogy story because it's so important because you never know what happened in your own lineage that affects what you do today. So I start off with Robert Allen, who built the house, who was born about 1875. But his father, Robert Allen Sr., was born about 1835. This Robert Allen Sr. was an enslaved man, but he was enslaved by his own father, who was a Julius Allen. This Julius Allen never had a wife, but he had a slave woman named Betsy, and he had 14 children by her. When he died in August of 1863, and everything that I'm telling you, this is public record, you can Google these things, okay? So in August of 1863, he leaves a will. In this will, he leaves them to his nephew-in-law, William F. Patton. Y'all know where Patton Street is? Okay, it's named after William F. Patton, and his niece, to leave them. He, you know, of course, you know, he gave all of his other, the people who were enslaved to other family members, but he made special provision for them. He gave them to his nephew-in-law and niece to hold them for a period of 7 years. And after the 7 years was up, he was supposed to give them $3,000 and take them to a free state and let them go free. So 1865 Emancipation Proclamation happens, and he goes to them and said, okay, I'm here to collect. And so William F. Patton said, slavery's over. You know, I don't have to uphold my end of the bargain. You're free to go. And so Robert Allen says, not so. This Black man in the middle of the 1800s took William F. Patton to court. This case went all the way to the Supreme Court. You can Google this case, Allen versus Patton, and read the whole thing in its entirety. And he lost, but just the gall that he had to take this man to court during the middle of Reconstruction, I might add, was, you know, it was serious. So the reason why I'm telling you this story is because this Robert Allen, his son-in-law, would end up living in the family home. Jerry Williams Sr., who was a prominent civil rights attorney who worked on cases like the Martinsville 7, Brown versus Board of Education, all of these key high-profile cases. So out of his children, Jerry Williams Sr., out of 4 children, 3 became lawyers. The first 3 African-Americans to graduate from UVA's law school were from Danville. The first being Gregory Swanson. We have a big statue at UVA dedicated to him. He grew up in the Brucetown section, which is on Stewart Street, right next to the hospital, which is another historically Black community. And he grew up there, the second being Isaac Cosby Hunt, and the third being Robert Williams, okay? So Robert Williams and Isaac Cosby Hunt were first cousins. These were the grandchildren of the Robert Allen that took his enslavers family to court. These men became the first African-Americans to attend UVA's law school. This Robert Williams would stage a sit-in at the Danville Museum, which was formerly our library, our segregated library, that would lead to integration, okay? And so just think about what's in their lineage and how it led to them doing this. So that's one of the stories I tell, and all of these stories are essential for historic preservation. And this is one of the ways that we can build up all of our communities and not just a select few, and make sure everybody is included in this preservation movement. Thanks.
Any questions? You have a question? Awesome job. Now we will have Sonia Ingram, Associate Director for Preservation Field Service and Preservation in Virginia.
I want to apologize for my glasses. I couldn't find my regular ones today, so bear with me. So I'm Sonia Ingram, Associate Director of Preservation Field Services, Preservation Virginia, for the statewide historic preservation organization in Virginia. So most states. So most states in the United States have a statewide preservation organization. Of course, there's hundreds of smaller nonprofits that work locally, but we do work all over the state. We have a small office here in Danville. So being here, and I'm actually from Pennsylvania County, so of course I try to do a lot of extra work for this area. But I wanted to just share some thoughts on the benefits of historic preservation. I know that everyone knows the benefits of preservation. I mean, most people do. We're talking about a lot of them today, for them. But I think that the layers of benefits is maybe what people kind of missed out on. And I'll start with the educational benefit. So, and I often think of Oak Hill, and I know you know what I'm talking about. Oak Hill it's in Pennsylvania County, not far from Danville. It was the seat of the Harston family dynasty. They had plantations all along Berry Hill Road, which you own one, all the way down into Mississippi, South Carolina. Oak Hill was the heart of their empire, I guess you could say. And the slave dwelling is still standing. The slave dwelling is still standing. The main house burned in the 1980s. We've been working on this slave dwelling for so long. It was looted at one point. We have some issues with the owners as far as like what to do with it. But that place, I mean, and it's in terrible shape. It's really gonna fall down someday. But it really has the power to educate people. It's a tangible place. It's you can touch it, you know, it's not words in a book, which can be manipulated so easily to fit narratives that may not be truthful. And I think our utmost goal with Oak Hill slave dwelling would be able to take visitors there and students there and to act as a place where these difficult conversations can occur. This is just especially true today. And I know that you've seen on TV where places like Florida, Texas, and even somewhat in Virginia, there's this dwindling desire really to teach our full history. So preservation as education is a huge part of preservation. And then we have the economic benefits, and we've already talked about those today. Saving historic places. I mean, you can see downtown Danville, the River District, and how programs like the Main Street program, the emphasis on preservation has grown tourism so much in Danville and in Virginia and everywhere. Brought people here, and the Historical Society folks were just talking about that. And I want to add too, there was a study done a few years ago when the tourism department was just starting up. They sent it out to so many people in the community, and over the most valuable asset that people voted on was our historic resources. And I want to just emphasize that because people here, that is what people care about. But I think sometimes that just gets kind of brushed under the rug, But okay, so we'll just move right on to environmental benefits. This alone to me should be enough to preserve historic places, historic buildings. You may have heard the phrase, the greenest building is the one that's already built. And that is so true. I can't emphasize enough how wasteful and environmentally damaging it is to demolish buildings and demolish historic buildings rather than repair them, rehab, reuse. There's something like a third of the debris in landfills is demolition debris, some huge amount. Recycling, everybody knows what recycling, everybody wants to recycle plastic and glass, but for some reason that has not transferred to houses, okay, I don't know why not, but and so community benefits, and I know Carice is really big on this, but can't emphasize enough how old places, they add to the health of our communities. And an example of this, African-American community in Cumberland County that we've been involved with for a few years. It houses landscapes, cemeteries, and at the center is a Rosenwald School, the Pine Road Rosenwald School. But that community has been threatened for several years from a landfill, a new landfill that's planned to go in. That community that has brought, the historic resources and saving them has brought the people together in that community like no other. They just had a historical marker unveiling a few weeks ago. But they have done, they have taken on themselves to do oral history projects, you name it. It's just amazing. They go out to schools and they talk about it. And this is the kind of community benefits that preservation can give to all communities. But, and this kind of touches on the environmental justice component, which I'm not going to go into it too much, but how historic preservation is a big part of our environmental justice. So as you probably know, a lot of the disadvantaged communities, that is where things like landfills go, that is where the sewer system goes, and over and over again, we see that over and over again. And we are working with a community here, not far, just in Danville, actually, Stokesland. And the Stokesland African-American community is sort of a smaller community within the larger Stokesland community. It's, if you drive through there, you would not think it was a community because it was zoned industrial at some point. So it's fragmented. There's just parking, there's parking lots, chain link fences, there's just industries here, industries there. But that is an African-American community. There's a Stokesland Rosenwald School, there's a huge cemetery, Flippin Cemetery, there's a church up there, there's houses. And they are trying so hard for years, they've been trying to just get a semblance of that community back through historic preservation, through saving their historic places. So I think though, what I feel is like the heart of preservation are some of these less tangible benefits. And those are benefits to identity, continuity, and memory. And if you have read Thompson Mays, who is he actually was my professor at law at University of Maryland, but he's at the National Trust now. And he writes about this. And so for so long, it was difficult to kind of put into words what that meant for me anyway, but he really is able to do it. I highly recommend checking out his book, All Places Matter. But what he says is that old places give people a sense of continuity in a time of constant change. They provide people with a sense of continuity that is necessary for psychological and emotional health. And this has actually been studied by psychologists and neuroscientists who agree that emotional bonds with places is really a prerequisite for people's emotional stability. And this is so, evident to me, all the schools and the churches that we work on, they're treasured, and it just helps people, it helps their mental health to know that they're still there. And on memory, all places help us remember. They are memories you can touch. Memories are an essential part of human consciousness. There's an inextricable link between memory and place. And this is like both personal memories, but our collective memories too. And there's a link between places and identity, neighborhood identity, and state identity, even national identity. And these aspects of memory, identity, continuity, these emotional attachments are much more important than people think. Preservation is not just a nice kind of thing to do, kind of extra thing on the side. I think it's just crucial that, it's not only these economic benefits, environmental, educational, but it's also about our health, human health, human's health, and the links between these places and the emotional benefits. I wasn't gonna read this thing from Sarah Robinson, who is a neuroscientist, and she kind of talks about this, but I recommend you do. But I will say that my wish is that preservationists did not have to fight so much. I know Reese, you guys know about that preservation was more intricately intertwined with state and local planning departments and health departments and education departments. But I do want to end with a quote. This is from Thompson Mays again, from his book. And he said that preservation, the work of preservationists, is to help provide people with a sense of belonging that is essential for their psychological and emotional health, to give them the opportunity to experience beauty that opens their hearts and minds to empathy with others, to recognize and act on the role preservationists can play on creating a more just and equitable world, and help people experience these places in a way that they can imagine a better future. Thanks.
Thanks. Any questions? Do we have any questions? Good job. So at this time, since we are running out of time, I just want to see if Will have any updates, any things that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I'll try and be brief here. So my name is Will Mackerman. I'm the Programs and Services Manager at RDA. My focus area is kind of on entrepreneurship. So we have a program we just completed last week. We offer business classes, and that leads into a pitch competition. And last week, we announced our grant awardees for this year. So we're pretty excited. Vaughn Wellington with River District Auto Spa will be expanding his business. So you can get an oil change or get your tires rotated there now. Go get a bite to eat while you do that. He's one of our grantees. Two Earthy Mamas with Ray Barnes. She's a business owner. They kind of do vintage clothing and wedding gifts. So she'll be opening up a storefront here in the River District. And then we'll have a toy shop opening up called the Happy Little Fox Toy Shop. So the business owner, Amy Pruitt, she has 5 kids. So she says she has a master's degree in buying toys. And so this is a toy shop buy-in for our community. It's going to be great to have. Hopefully all within the next year, those will be open and expanded. And then we have 2 events. There's flyers on the tables that are coming up in June. So we have a speaker coming to our community, Clifton Talbert, who he's going to be speaking about the entrepreneurial mindset and his entrepreneurship story. It's a big part of his life, which is really inspiring. He's got an inspirational story, and his story in entrepreneurship wasn't, dropping out of Harvard first year, going to Silicon Valley to start a business. He grew up at the height of legal segregation in Mississippi, rural community of 300 people, and he learned about entrepreneurship from his uncle, who owned a small business in Ice House in Mississippi. So he wrote a book. It became a movie called Once Upon a Time When We're Colored, and that book was gifted to Nelson Mandela when he was released from prison and stayed on Nelson Mandela's desk. So he's a really inspiring person. We would love to see you there. It's a free event. Dinner is included. It's at the Institute. It's on June 6th at 5:30, and just register by May 30th if you'd like to come. And then we have another event called the Startup Slam. Flyers are on the table. It's kind of in a nutshell like a poetry slam, but for business ideas. So we're trying to encourage people to share business ideas. You don't need a business plan or anything official. Just show up with your idea. And you can also just come to listen and be in the audience. We'll have food there. It's $10 a ticket, but whoever gets the most votes at the end of the night gets to take home all the money collected at the door from ticket sales. So somebody could walk away with a little bit of money, and we just try and keep it a fun, casual event. So, but that's it for all my updates.
Any questions for Will? For me, I'm LaShawn Farmer, the Director of Extension and Design. If you guys noticed, we walked on Main Street, we have what we call a Vibrant Window Project. So we have a lot of local artists have displayed their artwork in the window on the old building. So that when all those art pieces on display is very diverse, from a second grader all the way up to an 80-year-old man. It's black, white, male, female, all ages. Some of the artwork is for sale. You can even see the price of the artwork, or we can get in touch with the artist if you want to know, if you want to buy some of that artwork. I think it's just amazing to see the artistic mind of some of the people that live in our community. And also we're doing this thing called rain art. It's art that you only see when it rains. And that's gonna be at some of our it's gonna be at some of our bus stops in the downtown area and on the North Main area. So if you're raining and you're walking out with your umbrella, you can really see that artwork that's gonna be on the ground. There's just gonna be a lot of motivational quotes just to say, keep it going, hard work pays off, different things. If you out there in the rain walking, you're determined. So it's just like some of those things to really get, whether you take your dog out or you're going to work, whatever, doesn't matter, but just something just to motivate and brighten up your day. So that's some of the things that we're doing around the design components for River District also. Any discussions, questions, ideas, anything you want to any last remarks? I do want to thank all our speakers for coming out and speaking. I think it's a lot of great information. I was in New Orleans this week for work for the city, and it's 19 cities across the country, and we were talking about procurement and entrepreneurship, and they was talking about the history of the areas that you live in, and literally everybody in the room knew Danville. They knew it. They had either some type of connection to Danville, or they had heard an article about Danville. People know Danville. It's a lot of history here. And I ask you to take your time to really get engulfed in the history that lives within Danville, because like Lucy said, our history do matter. It do matter. And it's crazy a lot of times that people that's not from Danville know more about the history than the people that live in Danville. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's something that we need to really address, and making sure that when we're buying buildings, we're renovating buildings, and we're looking to expand and grow our area, that we know the history of the work that we're doing, because it do matter, do play a part. When you know, well, why am I moving on Patrick Street? Why am I living in Farborough? What does that mean? What does the history of that mean? Because it even can help with growing either the equity on your home, the equity on your business, and those different type of things. If you can tell the story when you're selling or buying, it means a lot. So it does play into the entrepreneurship and the procurement piece of what the things that goes on in our city. We talked a lot about redlining when I was there, and like how some of these cities are losing billions of dollars because they're tearing down buildings, or they're either creating highways as blocking opportunities for business to grow and thrive. It was a place in New Orleans that we drove through, and just because they built a highway, they lost $49 billion over 10 years just because they created a highway. And that's crazy that people don't know the history or the things that they're doing. All they know is, oh, this is gonna get me to a place quicker. And we need to really think about those type of things when we start talking about building and expanding Danville, because it's a lot of great, rich history here. The last thing we want to say that it's lost, or it was torn down, or nobody know about it. So get engulfed in it, grow it, learn it, and make it a benefit to not only you, but our future legacy that comes after us. So thank you for coming out. If you have any questions, we apologize for Diana and Chris and not being here. We hope me, Will, and Lisa lived up to their standards. But if you have any questions, just reach out by email to either one of us and we'll be able to gladly help you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much.